The massive starship drifted silently through the darkness of uncharted space, its powerful scanning beams cutting through the void. Inside the vessel, Mark Thompson stared at his display screen with growing excitement. After 3 months of searching this empty sector, they had finally found something interesting. "Council Leader Orion, you need to see this," he called out, his voice echoing through the ship's command center. The tall, silver-skinned alien walked over to his station, moving with the natural grace of his species. "What have you found, Human Thompson?" Orion asked, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of mild curiosity. Mark pointed to the screen, where dozens of large objects floated in perfect formation. "It's a fleet, sir. Ancient by the looks of it, but incredibly well preserved." He zoomed in on one of the vessels, revealing its weathered hull and simple design. "There must be at least 300 ships out there." Orion leaned closer, his expression changing to one of dismissal. "These are primitive vessels, Thompson. Look at their basic hull design and outdated propulsion systems." He straightened up, already losing interest. "They're relics, nothing more." But Mark couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to these ships than met the eye. As the research vessel moved closer to the ancient fleet, he noticed patterns in the ship's design that seemed oddly familiar. The basic shape of the hulls, the positioning of what appeared to be weapon ports, they reminded him of something he had seen in Earth's historical archives. Over the next few days, while the rest of the research team focused on cataloging the fleet's basic characteristics, Mark spent his free time studying the ships in detail. He noticed that despite their apparent age, the vessels showed almost no signs of structural damage from meteorites or space debris. For ships that had supposedly been floating in space for thousands of years, they were in remarkably good condition. "Dr. Walker," he called to his research partner one evening, "take a look at this." He pulled up a scan of one of the smaller ships. "Notice anything strange about the hull composition?" James Walker, a fellow human scientist, adjusted his glasses and studied the readings. "That's odd," he muttered. "The outer layer appears to be some kind of basic metal alloy. But these deeper scans—" He trailed off, frowning at the data. "Exactly," Mark said, excitement creeping into his voice. "There are layers of different materials, some of which don't match any known ancient civilizations in the galaxy. And look at this." He switched to a different display showing energy readings. "The ships are giving off a very faint power signature, almost undetectable, but it's there." Walker's eyes widened. "But that's impossible. After thousands of years, any power source should have died out completely." Their discussion was interrupted by Council Leader Orion's voice over the ship's comm system. "Attention all research personnel. We've completed our initial survey of the derelict fleet. As these vessels appear to be of little scientific value, we will be moving on to the next sector tomorrow. Please complete your final scans and reports." Mark felt his heart sink. He knew there was something special about these ships, but he needed more time to prove it. That night, while most of the crew slept, he used his security clearance to access the ship's long-range scanners. He aimed them at one of the largest vessels in the ancient fleet and began a detailed analysis of its interior structure. As the data started flowing in, his hands began to shake. Hidden beneath layers of seemingly primitive technology, he detected signs of advanced systems unlike anything he had ever seen. But what really caught his attention was a small symbol, barely visible on an interior bulkhead. It was weathered and faded, but he recognized it immediately. The United Earth Space Force emblem, dated 2157. The ancient fleet wasn't just another archaeological discovery. It was human in origin, and Mark had a feeling he knew exactly why it had been left here, waiting silently in the darkness of space. The question was, would anyone believe him before it was too late? Mark Thompson couldn't sleep. The research ship was already preparing to leave the sector, but the strange energy readings from the ancient fleet kept getting stronger. He sat in the dimly lit observation room, watching the massive collection of ships through the viewport while checking his scanner readings for the 100th time. A soft beeping from his tablet made him jump. The energy signature he'd been tracking had suddenly doubled in strength. He quickly pressed several buttons on his console, trying to get a better reading. "Working late again, Human Thompson." Council Leader Orion's voice made Mark spin around in his chair. The tall alien stood in the doorway, his silver skin reflecting the soft blue light from the displays. "Sir, please look at these readings," Mark said, holding out his tablet. "The fleet is becoming more active. We can't leave yet." Orion's four eyes blinked in their dismissive pattern. "These are random energy fluctuations from decaying power cores. Nothing more." He turned to leave but stopped when a new alarm started blaring from Mark's console. The largest ship in the ancient fleet had begun to glow. Soft lights flickered along its hull, and something that looked like writing appeared on its side. Mark quickly adjusted the ship's external cameras to zoom in on the text. That's impossible," he whispered. The words were in English, but not modern English. It was the kind used during humanity's first attempts at space colonization. "Warning. Leave il-1 security WPRO to COLs. Actigated. 3 ASATSS in Pro-Juries. Stand by. How are your instructions?" "What does it say?" Orion asked, trying to hide his concern. Before Mark could answer, Dr. Walker burst into the room. "Mark, you need to see this." James was out of breath, his glasses slightly crooked on his face. "I found references to this fleet in the old Earth archives. It's from something called the Great Migration." Mark turned to Orion, his voice urgent. "Sir, we need to contact Earth immediately. This fleet, it's not just some abandoned ships. It's part of humanity's emergency preservation protocol." But Orion had already composed himself. "You're letting your imagination run wild, Thompson. This is clearly just an automated warning system, triggering randomly after all these years. I'm calling in the salvage teams tomorrow." "Salvage teams?" Mark and James said together. "Yes, these ships may be primitive, but their materials could be valuable. We'll break them down for resources." Orion turned to leave. "That's final." After Orion left, James pulled up more information on his tablet. According to these records, during humanity's first expansion into space, they knew they might face extinction-level threats. So they built multiple fleets and hid them across the galaxy. Mark nodded, remembering his history lessons. The Great Migration. Everyone thought it failed because the ships never reached their destinations. He looked out at the fleet again. They didn't fail. They were never meant to leave. They were meant to wait. Suddenly, more ships in the fleet began to light up. New messages appeared on their hulls, and the energy readings spiked dramatically. Mark's tablet began receiving data streams, massive amounts of information being broadcast from the fleet. "James, look at this," Mark said, his voice shaking. "These ships, they're not primitive at all. The outer hull is just a disguise. These are probably the most advanced vessels ever built by humanity." The data showed layer after layer of hidden technology, weapon systems that shouldn't have been possible in that era, power sources that could run for thousands of years. And at the core of each ship, something that made both men stare in amazement: quantum computers running advanced artificial intelligence systems. A new message appeared on the largest ship's hull. 3 DETC Tygon systems online. Hostile force approaching galactic ECCC2R7. Fleet activation sequence initiated. Time to fuel power 72 HOURs. Mark looked at James, his face pale. "We need to convince them to stay. Something's coming, something bad enough that our ancestors built this fleet to fight it. And if we leave now, we might doom everyone in this part of the galaxy." Outside the viewport, more and more ships began to wake up, their true power hidden no longer. The ancient fleet was coming back to life, ready to fulfill its mission after thousands of years of patient waiting. The emergency alarms on the research ship blared to life, their harsh sound jerking Mark Thompson awake at his console. Red warning lights flashed across every screen in the command center. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The ship's AI announced, "Unknown configuration. No response to identification requests." Council leader Orion rushed onto the bridge, his silver skin pale with worry. "Report." Before anyone could answer, their communication system crackled to life. A distress signal played through the speakers. "This is Colony Station Beta 7. We are under attack. Unknown vessels have destroyed our outer defenses. They're not responding to any attempts at communication. Please, anyone who can hear this." The message cut off in static. "Beta 7 is only 2 systems away," James Walker said, checking the star charts. "And it's one of our most heavily defended colonies." More emergency signals began flooding in. 3 other colonies had gone dark in the past hour. The unknown ships were moving through the sector, destroying everything in their path. Orion's 4 eyes widened as tactical data appeared on the main screen. The enemy fleet was massive, using weapons technology nobody had ever seen before. The latest reports showed that the Council's most advanced warships couldn't even dent their shields. "Sir," Mark said, standing up, "we need to go back to the ancient fleet. Now." "Those obsolete human ships," Orion scoffed, but there was less certainty in his voice now. What could they possibly do against this threat? Mark pulled up the data he and James had gathered. These ships were built to fight something specific. Look at their weapon systems, their shield configurations. They were designed to counter exactly this type of technology. As if to emphasize his point, another distress call came through. This time, they could see the attack happening. Strange, angular ships with glowing purple hulls tore through the colony's defenses like they were made of paper. "Those designs," James whispered, pointing at the screen. "They matched the threat assessments we found in the ancient fleet's databanks." Orion finally nodded. "Take us back." Maximum speed. When they reached the ancient fleet again, the changes were dramatic. All the ships were now fully illuminated, their previously dull hulls gleaming with hidden technology. Energy readings were off the charts. Mark worked frantically at his console, trying to interface with the fleet's systems. "They're fully awake now. The AI is processing thousands of years of accumulated data, but we need to find a way to control them." "Look," someone pointed at the main viewport. The largest ship in the fleet was transforming. Panels that had seemed like simple hull plates shifted and changed. Weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments. The entire vessel seemed to be rebuilding itself from the inside out. "It's not just a disguise," James said in awe. "The whole fleet is designed to evolve and adapt. They've been gathering data and upgrading themselves all this time." A new message appeared across the ancient ship's hull. 3TIDENTIFIed. MATECHFO and Void Hunters. ACTIVATINGCOMB PWAROTOCIOLAS. REQUESTING Command Authorization. Mark's console suddenly lit up with new information. The fleet's AI. It's asking for human authorization to engage. Without waiting for permission from Orion, Mark placed his hand on the console's scanner. The system hummed as it read his DNA, confirming his human ancestry. Authorization accepted. A calm voice spoke through their ship's speakers. "I am Admiral Reed, AI Commander of the Earth Defense Fleet. We've been waiting a long time for this moment." The ancient ships began moving into formation, their movements precise and coordinated. What had looked like primitive engines now pulsed with incredible power. Hidden weapon ports opened all along their hulls, revealing technology far beyond anything currently existing. "Multiple hostile contacts approaching this sector," Admiral Reed announced. "All ships, battle stations. We will show them why humanity's creations should never be underestimated." Mark watched in amazement as the once ridiculed fleet prepared for battle. They were about to witness firsthand why their ancestors had been confident enough to leave these ships as guardians of the galaxy. Mark Thompson's fingers flew across the holographic keyboard as streams of code filled his screen. Next to him, James Walker was doing the same, both men racing against time to understand the ancient fleet systems. "This is incredible," James said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The base code is simple English, but it's layered with thousands of self-written updates. The AI has been improving itself for centuries." Admiral Reed's hologram appeared beside them. The AI had chosen to present itself as a stern-looking older man in an old Earth military uniform. The fleet was designed to learn and grow. "We've had a long time to perfect our systems." A loud alarm interrupted their work. On the main screen, they could see the hostile fleet getting closer. The purple glow of their ships created an eerie light in space, like a storm of violent stars approaching. 3 hours until they reached this sector, Council Leader Orion announced, his voice tense. He had stopped questioning the humans after seeing the ancient fleet's transformation. "How soon can we have weapons ready?" "The weapons are already operational," Admiral Reed replied. "But we need these humans to unlock our most advanced systems. Safety protocols require human oversight for major combat decisions." Mark nodded, understanding dawning on his face. "That's why the fleet needed human DNA authentication. You're not just an AI. You're meant to work with us." He pulled up another screen of code, this one showing the weapon systems. His eyes widened as he read through it. "These aren't normal weapons. They're reality distortion cannons. I didn't think this kind of technology was possible." "Not possible by today's standards," James added, looking at the same data. "But our ancestors somehow managed it. They built weapons that could alter the fabric of space itself." The research ship shuddered as another vessel arrived. This one friendly. The Council's most advanced warship, the Starbreaker, had come to help. Its captain appeared on their communication screen. "We lost contact with 3 more colonies," the captain reported grimly. "Our weapons do nothing against them. Please tell me you have something that can fight these monsters." Mark looked at the weapons data again. According to these readings, the hostile ships are using some kind of void energy. They exist partially outside normal space. That's why conventional weapons can't hurt them. "Precisely," Admiral Reed said. "We were built to fight enemies that break the rules of reality. Your ancestors encountered the Void Hunters before, during the first migration. They nearly wiped out humanity." James pulled up an old battle record from the fleet's database. "So humanity built this fleet as a trap, knowing the Void Hunters would return. They made the ships look primitive so they would be ignored, left alone to gather data and grow stronger." Mark's console suddenly glowed bright blue. New options appeared on his screen as more systems came online. "The final security locks are opening. We have full access to all combat systems now." The massive ancient ships hummed with power. What had once looked like simple metal hulls now rippled with energy fields. Hidden weapon ports opened all along their sides, revealing technology that shouldn't have existed thousands of years ago. "Final system check complete," Admiral Reed announced. "All ships report ready for combat. Activating quantum shields. Charging reality anchors." Through the viewport, they could see the fleet's true form revealed at last. Each ship was now surrounded by layers of shifting energy fields. Streams of strange light connected them to each other, forming a massive battle network. 2 hours until enemy contact," Orion said. "Will we be ready?" Mark looked at the weapon controls, now fully unlocked. The technology in his hands was beyond anything he had ever imagined. The legacy of a humanity that had faced extinction and chosen to fight back. "We'll be ready," he said firmly. "Our ancestors left us everything we need to win this fight. Now it's our turn to prove they were right to trust us with their greatest creation." Space itself seemed to tear apart as the Void Hunters' fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. Their purple glowing ships filled the viewport, hundreds of them moving in perfect formation. The sight made even Council Leader Orion step back in fear. Enemy fleet size, approximately 500 vessels. Admiral Reed announced calmly. They outnumber us nearly 2-1. Mark Thompson stood at his control station, hands steady despite his racing heart. Admiral Reed, begin primary defense formation. The ancient human fleet moved with surprising grace. Ships that had seemed clumsy and outdated now flowed like water, arranging themselves in a complex three-dimensional pattern. Energy fields connected each vessel, creating a vast web of power. Void Hunters are launching their first attack, James Walker called out from his station. Same pattern they used against the colonies. Purple beams of energy shot from the enemy ships, meant to tear through shields and armor like they didn't exist. But this time, something different happened. Reality anchors active. Admiral Reed announced. Quantum shields at full power. When the purple beams hit the ancient fleet's defenses, they scattered like light hitting a mirror. Not a single shot made it through. Impossible. The Starbreaker's captain exclaimed over the comm system. How did you stop their weapons? The shields don't just block attacks, Mark explained, reading from his display. They force everything to obey normal physics. The Void Hunters can't use their dimension-shifting tricks anymore. The enemy fleet paused, seemingly confused by their failed attack. Then they charged forward, their ships accelerating to incredible speeds. They're trying to overwhelm us with numbers, Orion observed, his 4 eyes tracking the battle display. Not going to work, Mark said with a grim smile. Admiral Reed, activate the primary weapons. The ancient fleet's response was spectacular. Points of light appeared all along the ship's hulls, growing brighter and brighter. What had looked like simple weapon ports now opened to reveal arrays of technology that shouldn't have existed thousands of years ago. Reality distortion cannons charge, Admiral Reed reported. Targeting solutions locked. Firing. Beams of pure white energy lanced out from the human ships. Where they hit, space itself seemed to twist and bend. Void Hunter vessels caught in the blasts didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, forced fully into normal space where their impossible technology couldn't function. Direct hits on 27 enemy vessels, James reported excitedly. Their void shields can't stop our weapons. But the Void Hunters weren't defeated yet. Their remaining ships began to adapt, changing their attack patterns and trying new strategies. Purple energy torpedoes replaced the beams, seeking gaps in the ancient fleet's formation. Enemy adapting to our attack pattern, Admiral Reed noted, initiating countermeasures. The human fleet's response was even more impressive than their first attack. The ships began to move in new ways, their formation shifting and changing like a living thing. Weapons fired from impossible angles, catching the enemy off guard. The fleet's artificial intelligence, Mark realized, watching the battle unfold. It's not just fighting, it's learning from every exchange. Council leader Orion stepped forward, his earlier dismissal of the fleet completely forgotten. In all my years, I've never seen ships move like this. Your ancestors built something truly remarkable, Thompson. More Void Hunter ships vanished under the ancient fleet's assault. The enemy's perfect formation began to break apart as they realized, perhaps for the first time in their existence, that they were facing an opponent they couldn't easily defeat. Enemy fleet retreating, Admiral Reed announced. They've lost 1/3 of their forces. But Mark noticed something in the battle data that made him frown. They're not really running away. Look at their movement pattern. They're regrouping. This was just a test attack. They wanted to see what we're capable of. Let them come, James said, confidence in his voice. The fleet hasn't even shown them everything it can do yet. Through the viewport, the ancient human ships glowed with power, no longer pretending to be primitive relics. They had awakened to their true purpose, ready to defend the galaxy once again. The battle room was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional beeping of sensors. Mark Thompson studied the holographic display showing the enemy fleet's new formation. The Void Hunters had pulled back to regroup, but their ships were arranging themselves in a pattern he didn't like. They're planning something big, he said to James Walker, who was analyzing data from their first battle. "How are the fleet's systems holding up?" Before James could answer, Admiral Reed's hologram appeared. "Mr. Thompson, we need you in the core chamber. We've discovered something important." Mark followed the AI's directions through the ancient flagship's corridors. What had once looked like rusty metal walls now gleamed with hidden technology. Every surface pulsed with soft light, revealing complex circuits that had been invisible before. The core chamber took his breath away. It was a massive spherical room filled with floating holographic displays. In the center, a column of pure energy stretched from floor to ceiling, shifting through colors like a living rainbow. "This is the fleet's true heart," Admiral Reed said, his hologram standing beside the energy column. "Not just an AI core, but a learning matrix based on human consciousness patterns." Mark stepped closer to one of the displays. It showed millions of lines of code, but they weren't written in any programming language he knew. The code was changing by itself, growing and adapting like a living thing. "Your ancestors didn't just build an AI to control these ships," Reed explained. "They created a system that thinks like a human but processes data like a computer. We learned from every battle, every situation, just like a human would." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. James's voice came over the intercom. "Mark, get back here. The Void Hunters are launching a massive attack. They've called in reinforcements." Through the chamber's viewing ports, Mark could see new enemy ships arriving. Their purple glow was brighter than before, and their hulls seemed to shift between dimensions. "They've modified their ships based on our last battle," Reed observed. "Fascinating. They're trying to counter our reality anchors." Mark rushed back to the battle room, where Council Leader Orion and James were watching the enemy fleet's approach. The tactical display showed over 1,000 Void Hunter ships now, their formation designed to overwhelm the ancient fleet's defenses. "Can we handle that many?" Orion asked, his silver skin pale with worry. Mark smiled as he checked his readings. "Watch this. Admiral Reed, initiate the Learning Matrix adaptation protocols." The effect was immediate and stunning. The ancient fleet's ships began to change. Their hulls flowed like liquid metal, rebuilding themselves based on data from the previous battle. New weapon systems emerged, specifically designed to counter the Void Hunters' modifications. "That's impossible," Orion whispered. "Ships can't just evolve like that." "Human ships can," James said proudly. "Our ancestors built these vessels to adapt and grow. Every challenge makes them stronger." The Void Hunters launched their attack, their improved weapons tearing through space toward the ancient fleet. But the human ships were ready. Their reformed hulls absorbed the enemy fire, using its energy to power their own weapons. "The fleet is analyzing their attack patterns," Mark reported, watching the data stream across his screen. "It's not just adapting the weapons, it's predicting their strategies before they make them." The battle room's main screen showed the incredible sight. The ancient human ships moved with impossible grace, always one step ahead of the enemy. When the Void Hunters tried new tactics, the fleet had counters ready before the attacks even began. This is why the ships were disguised as primitive vessels, James realized. They needed time to learn, to understand every possible way an enemy might fight. All those years floating in space weren't wasted. They were spent preparing for this moment. Admiral Reed's voice filled the room, calm but proud. "The human touch, as your people call it. The ability to learn, to adapt, to overcome any challenge. Your ancestors built that quality into every part of this fleet. And now, after thousands of years of waiting, we can finally show the galaxy why humanity's creations should never be underestimated." The ancient ships continued their dance through space, each movement more precise than the last. They weren't just fighting the Void Hunters. They were teaching themselves how to win. The final battle unfolded like a deadly dance across the stars. The Void Hunters had committed their entire force. Nearly 2,000 ships now filled the sector with their purple glow. But the ancient human fleet moved without fear, each vessel acting with purpose and precision. Mark Thompson stood at his command station, watching the battle with fierce pride. Admiral Reed, activate the synchronized attack pattern we discussed. With pleasure, the AI responded. All ships, execute Formation Phoenix. The human fleet's response was beautiful and terrifying. The ships moved in perfect harmony, their reformed hulls gleaming with power. Energy flowed between them, creating a web of pure light that stretched across space. By the stars, Council Leader Orion whispered, his 4 eyes wide with amazement. They're combining their power fields. The Void Hunters struck first, launching a massive wave of their dimension-shifting weapons. Purple energy filled space like a tidal wave of destruction. But when it hit the human fleet's defenses, something unexpected happened. Reality Anchor Network at full power, James Walker reported from his station. Quantum field stabilization at maximum. The purple energy didn't just stop, it was absorbed into the human ship's power network. The fleet's energy web glowed brighter and brighter, taking in the enemy's attack and transforming it. Now, Mark commanded, show them what humanity's greatest fleet can really do. Every human ship fired at once. Thousands of reality distortion beams combined into a single massive wave of white energy. Space itself bent and twisted as the attack rolled forward. The Void Hunters tried to escape, tried to shift between dimensions as they always had before. But this time, they couldn't run. The fleet isn't just destroying them, James realized, studying his readings. It's sealing the dimensional rifts they use for travel. They can't escape back to their void space. Caught in normal space, unable to use their usual tactics, the mighty Void Hunter armada began to fall. Ship after ship vanished, their impossible technology failing against weapons designed specifically to counter them. Enemy fleet at 50% strength, Admiral Reed announced calmly. 30%, 10%. The last few Void Hunter ships tried one final desperate attack. They charged directly at the human fleet, weapons firing wildly. But the ancient ships simply adjusted their formation, creating gaps that closed again after the enemy passed through, trapping them. Final targets eliminated, Reed reported. The sector is clear. A cheer went up from everyone in the battle room. Even Orion was celebrating, his silver skin glowing with excitement. Incredible. Simply incredible. But Mark noticed something on his display that made him pause. Admiral Reed, these readings, are you detecting other fleets out there? The AI's hologram smiled. Of course. Did you think your ancestors would only leave one fleet as guardians? There are others, sleeping and waiting, hidden throughout the galaxy. Each one disguised, each one learning and growing, just like we were. More fleets? Orion asked, his celebration cut short by surprise. How many? That information is classified, Reed replied with a hint of amusement. Let's just say humanity took their role as guardians of the galaxy very seriously. Mark looked out at the ancient fleet, now revealed in all its glory. The ships no longer needed their primitive disguise. They floated proudly in space, their true form a testament to human ingenuity and foresight. I guess we should thank you, Mark said to Orion, for laughing at these ships when we first found them. If you hadn't dismissed them as worthless, the Void Hunters might have realized what they really were before it was too late. Orion nodded humbly. A lesson learned. Never underestimate humanity or their creations. He looked thoughtfully at the fleet. I wonder what other surprises your ancestors left scattered among the stars. That's the beauty of it, James said, smiling. The fleet's AI core tells me that even they don't know everything they're capable of yet. They're still learning, still growing, still becoming something new, just like humanity itself. Through the viewport, the ancient fleet began to power down their combat systems, but they didn't return to their primitive disguise. There was no need to hide anymore. The galaxy now knew that humanity's legacy was watching over them, ready to face any threat that might emerge from the darkness of space. The fleet that everyone had laughed at had become a legend, and somewhere out there, other human fleets waited, ready to protect the galaxy when they were needed most.